Thomas's face.
Yeah.
When he looks up, and I felt it for him. I was like, surely, right? This kid, he could.
Right.
He's right there.
Right.
You know, and then that just struck another place.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and when we talked about that part afterwards, that's when my buddy Brian started crying.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, I mean, if you believe that God is with us, he's here. He could heal at any moment if he wanted to, and then he doesn't. You know.
Ruslan.
I want to come back to the idea of fighting for excellence in the studio because I'm a geek and I really want to know how that practically looks, right? But I think what you just described reminds me of what my buddy Dallas does over at The Chosen, where they are in theaters right now.
Yeah.
Season 4, episode 1 through 3, and they are intentionally saying, hey, take your non-Christian friends and family to these events.
Yep.
And we're going to depict a creative and authentic Jesus. We're going to make great, excellent work.
Right.
And it becomes an evangelistic opportunity to bring someone to a movie theater. They may not go to a church. Bring them to Pechanga Casino.
Right.
They may not go to a church.
Yep.
And I think that is so dope. So do you see any of those same parallels between what you guys are doing, what you're doing, and other forms of media like The Chosen?
Yes, man. We just watched The Chosen in the theaters the first week it came out. And
you watched this one that just came out? Okay.
I left bawling my eyes out. I was like, man, why y'all do us like this? But yeah, no, I do see that parallel there. And I think they're encouraging more Christians to go and fight for that excellence, you know. And I think Christians have to take up space in the world more in artistic ways. I think historically that's what the church has always done. And I think we need to just continue in that legacy. I think we kind of got stalled a little bit, you know, once we figured out what works, you know, we got trapped there. But man, if you want your kids to latch on to something that's about the kingdom of God, it's got to be art.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be art, you know, and so that's why I'm passionate about making sure that we're fighting for that.
Yeah. What's unique about what you just said is that I was able to exemplify that last night. Me and my son are doing our devotional, and we're reading about Jesus calling Peter to walk on the water.
Yeah.
And he was like, "What do you think that looked like? What do you think that was?" And I said, "Oh, my buddy did it in his TV show." And he's like, "Really?"
Yeah.
And so we pulled up the walking on water scene from the season 3 finale. And we were able to watch it, and he was like, "Wow!" And I was like, "Okay, this part, this is adding narrative. This is extra biblical, right? But everything here is what it probably looked like, and how it looked." And he was just like, "Whoa!" So it made the scriptures kind of come illuminate in a different way.
Yeah.
And then he was also thinking of the creative, like, how did they pull that off? Like,
Yeah,
how did they do that? And I'm like,
right.
I'll show you a video tomorrow of
Yeah.
how they did the technical side of
Yep.
it, right? So I think that's so awesome, and I think you nailed it. So tell me, season 4.
Season
Episode
4,
3.
Episode 3.
I didn't. Okay, so they show. I was at the premiere in LA,
Mm-hmm.
and they showed us the first 2 episodes, and it didn't show us episode 3.
Oh.
And then Dallas sent it to me.
Okay.
Dallas was like, "Here, like you should watch this. Our most controversial episode ever." And I was like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Where is this going? Where is this going?" And then they get, and we're not, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, we're gonna give you some spoilers right here. But what did you think of Rema and Thomas and just that whole thing?
Dude, when it happened, I went, this is how they're setting up the doubting Thomas narrative.
That's right.
For sure, right?
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. But I was like, surely he's not going to kill someone with a sword, because I feel like we haven't really been there yet in the show. And the way they set it up, I was like, no way. Is it really Rema? Huh? And I gasped. Like I literally sat up and my hands were over my mouth for like 2 minutes. I just could not believe it. And then I started sobbing. Funny thing is, I was sitting next to Jay, who works on the Chosen set. And he also is in Toby's band with me this year. And I'm just sobbing, and he's over there sobbing. And then Raimi is sitting next to me. And I go, wait a minute. Jay, did you know this was going to happen? He was like, yeah, I watched it happen every day. I was like, dude.
Yeah.
He was like, I obviously couldn't say anything. But like seeing his reaction, even. But the movie theater was just stunned, and I was like, mad. I was really mad about it. Yeah. I just felt bad for Thomas,
Yeah. I wanted Thomas to be married so bad. So as a human, I'm watching it and I'm like, man, the the Peter and his wife is super cool.
Yep.
And I just read this yesterday in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Paul writes about the other apostles having wives.
Right.
So it wouldn't have been outside of the possibility for all of them to be married potentially, right? Because he talks about them. Hey, the apostles travel with their wives, and you guys take care of them.
Yep.
And if I'm sowing spiritually, shouldn't I receive material? Being taken care of materially. So it was so interesting. So I'm like, oh yeah, Thomas is gonna have a wife, and they're gonna go be missionaries. So in church history, they say Thomas went to India.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think there's this like, oh yeah, like this is how they're gonna go do missions work together, which was within the lines. So then when that happened, I'm sitting there thinking, because I texted Dallas, and I'm like, I was like, two things. One, she's almost the first martyr. In a way?
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
But he's like, no, because it was more of an accident. She didn't die for her faith. And I was like, okay, fair enough. But then the more controversial part, those of us that, flow in more charismatic circles, is Jesus seeing someone,
dude,
and not healing them.
Thomas's face, when he looks up, and I felt it for him. I was like, surely, right? He could. Right. He's right there.
Right.
And then that just struck another place.
Yeah.
Like, and when we talked about that part afterwards, that's when my buddy Brian started crying.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, if you believe that God is with us, he's here. He could heal at any moment if he wanted to, and then he doesn't, and just having to wrestle with that through the lens of Thomas was really tough. But ultimately, it's you either trust God or you don't trust God, and I think that's the tension there,
According to the Bible, that prayer is extremely important in terms of us being transformed from the inside out when we get aligned with God's will. For the Christians watching this channel, I want you guys to implement these spiritual disciplines in your day-to-day life. And the only way I've been able to do this consistently is through writing down my prayers in a prayer journal that does a few things. One, it allows me to reflect and come to God humbly and ask him to move on my behalf. And two, it allows me to document my prayers, which ultimately help me remember the very things that I was praying for and see the hand of God tangibly in my life when he answers them. So I would urge you, consider writing down your prayers. It could be in a blank notebook. It could even be on your phone. Or you could check out the one I personally designed and used from my own quiet time and spiritual discipline that I think will be a huge blessing. It's the exact structure and system that I've used for years to pray and be more consistent in my spiritual disciplines. You can pick yours up today by clicking the link in the pinned comment below. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.